Welcome back to the main theatre if you've been upstairs all day. It's great to see all of you back in here. This is the last job that I've got to do today is introduce this final speaker, a keynote speaker for you, and then I can go put my feet up and enjoy this last talk and then the after party, right? So let's get on with it. Our final speaker then helps B2B businesses thrive through digital transformation. She works on bridging, her work bridges strategy, storytelling, helping people lead with purpose, and I think she's going to bring a little bit of that to you today as well. She's also the host of the Hello Moxie podcast, which champions women in tech and leadership as well. So another advocate up on the stage for us to celebrate. So please give a warm welcome to Nicole Donnelly.
Hello, meet Magento, my gosh! It is so amazing to be here in London again. First of all, we have to give a massive thank you to Jamie and the JH team for the incredible event today. Let's all give a big round of applause. They have worked so hard to make this such an exceptional experience. And 2 years ago, I didn't know a single person in this room. I was in the middle of launching a Magento e-commerce store for one of my B2B manufacturers, and we were in the thick of it, up to our elbows in product data and metadata and QA review. You know, right? You all know what that's like. I will never forget looking at Screaming Frog reports late at night, listening to Taylor Swift on repeat. And then I get a phone call from our e-commerce partner, Noah. See, Noah is planning an event in New York called Meet Magento. I'd never heard of it. And he asked me to be the keynote speaker. Now, I thought he was playing a joke on me. I'm not kidding. If you know Noah, you know he's that kind of guy. He would do that. I had never given a keynote speech before. So I asked him, "Are you sure?" And he said, "You've got a great story." My first reaction was, what's so great about my story? I'm a scrappy marketer trying to help a small B2B manufacturer deliver a better customer experience through e-commerce. Have you ever felt like that about your story? So I told him I'd sleep on it. And the next day, I woke up scared out of my mind. And I called him up and I said, yes, I'll do it. I will be the keynote speaker. After I hung up, I almost called him back and told him I changed my mind. And there I was, 3 weeks later, the day before the event. I went to the venue for sound check. I walked on stage in front of an empty room. The bright lights were shining down on me, and I got the goosebumps. See, 2 years prior to this, I'd actually written in my journal that I wanted to speak on a stage one day. Yes, I am one of those crazy people who actually wanted to be a public speaker. And I am here to tell you, manifesting works. So the next day, I delivered that first keynote. And it was incredible. I met so many wonderful people in this community, kind, brilliant, inclusive, that I'm now lucky and grateful to call friends. And since then, I've had a lot of firsts in this community. I've spoken in Florida and in New York on change management and digital transformation. I was here in the UK last year and spoke on that same topic. I planned my first Women in E-commerce event last fall. And earlier this year, we brought our podcast on the road, and we interviewed people in this community at Meet Magento, Florida. And now, here I am delivering my first international keynote. This is literally a dream come true. And it wouldn't have been possible without the people in this community who believed in me and supported me and were allies. Like my lovely friend, Tig Bo, who's out here somewhere, who is in the audience, who heard me speak in New York and encouraged me to apply to this event last year. I didn't even know about it. He encouraged me to apply. But not only that, he helped me and supported me along the way. And Jamie, who took a chance on this scrappy marketer from Virginia to speak last year and come back in Keynote today. And so many other people who have helped me and supported me. This is the power of connection and community. This is the power of the Magento community. And today I want to share with you a new framework I've developed as a result of my journey to this stage. And it's called the Moxie Method. Now, Moxie is a very American word. I bet most of you may have never heard of this word before. It's actually coined 150 years ago. It was the first mass-produced soda in the US, before Coke. And Moxie was known for having a very bracing, bitter, and unforgettable taste. Eventually, it became slang for courage, determination, and force of character. The Moxie Method is rooted in 5 stages, visualized through the olive tree, from seed to pollination. And I have to give major props. The artwork here was actually painted by my mom, who is an artist. And so it's really quite special for me to have her on the stage with me as I give this talk. So the 5 stages of the Moxie Method are the seed, spark, sprout, speak, and shine. Olive trees grow really slowly, but with incredible strength and stamina, demonstrating the path to courageous, bold, and connected leadership. Moxie. And don't we all need courageous and connected leadership today? I mean, the e-commerce industry and the economy, we're facing some pretty intense headwinds. There's so much global economic uncertainty happening right now, and political unrest. Add to that the always-on culture. With global teams, we feel like we're constantly tethered to our devices. Then you add to that the data-driven pressure to perform, where it feels like our worth is tied to our dashboards. And then there's the fatigue at the constant need for digital transformation, which just leads to overwhelm, trying to keep up with the rapid pace of change, which just increases imposter syndrome at every level. Things are changing so quickly that nobody feels qualified and nobody feels safe actually admitting it. And this is just what's happening at work. At home, you may be dealing with significant life transitions, caring for children and aging parents, dealing with divorce, co-parenting, single parenting, illness. It's no wonder that 71% of people in tech are experiencing burnout today. 71% of people in this room are experiencing burnout. Not only that, but 65% are struggling to meet employer demands. And 62% of men and 75% of women struggle with imposter syndrome at all levels of leadership. So, what happens when people are overworked and feel like frauds? Well, The amygdala, the threat detector, takes over. And our prefrontal cortex, the CEO, goes offline, making us more anxious and irritable and unable to see the bigger picture. We can't see the forest through the trees. Something's got to give. Now, I know I have some soccer fans in the room, right? You all may be familiar with this guy. You might have some strong feelings about him. But he is arguably the best soccer player in the world. He's won the World Cup. He is a superstar. He has more assists than any other footballer in history, and he also has a foundation for vulnerable children. But did you also know that Messi struggles with terrible anxiety? For over a decade, he was known to vomit repeatedly before a match. And after a string of devastating national team losses, his idol, the great Diego Maradona, criticized Messi by saying, quote, "It's useless trying to make a leader out of a man who goes to the toilet 20 times before a game." Ouch. Well, I'm no world-class soccer player, but I know what anxiety feels like. I've struggled with it my whole life, and I'll bet many of you have too. See, the pressure for me to succeed was ever present. I come from a very long line of uber-successful entrepreneurs on both sides of my family who all independently built very successful businesses. So, I've been hustling since I was 4 years old. My earliest memory happened when I was 4. I'm sitting on a boat in the middle of a lake. It's a beautiful summer day, and I'm hearing laughter, but I'm not laughing. My dad walks over to me and he scoops me up. Suddenly, my heart starts racing. "No, Dad," I say, "stop." And he smiles, and he laughs, and he tosses me overboard. Next thing I know, I'm in the water. I don't know how to swim. But somehow I fight my way back to the boat. My dad is waiting. He pulls me back in with a sparkle in his eye and sets me inside. And I feel so confused that someone I love, someone who loves me, doesn't listen to me. And more, I'm scared because I know it's going to happen again. See, my father psychologically and literally threw me overboard throughout my childhood. And so I learned how to swim fast, and I learned how to hustle, and I learned to keep my voice down. And I tell this story not to disparage my father. I loved him. I tell it because that's what he learned and that's what he knew. And I tell it to illustrate that many of us have had similar experiences. We're still trying to make it back to someone else's boat, trying to earn our seat. My hustling really kicked into high gear when I turned 15 and I got my first job. I learned really quickly that I was really good at working. I was the delightful, generous, always smiling employee with the slightly insane work ethic. It didn't take me long to be addicted to work. 20 years of overworking later, I started a marketing business, and we grew very fast. Within 6 months, our monthly recurring revenue tripled. and my work addiction intensified. I'd work evenings, weekends, I'd be on vacation, and I'd be sitting on my laptop working while my kids would be outside in the pool swimming without me. And every time I shut my laptop, I'd be on edge, unsettled, craving the chaos of work. Until one day, after the death of my father and finding myself in another unhealthy relationship, I finally hit burnout. I was stuck in a business I didn't even know I wanted, trying to make everyone around me happy except myself. But this realization, it didn't happen overnight. There was one thing I'd been doing for years. And do you know what it was? Nothing. For years prior to this, I had been practicing doing nothing. I'd go outside and I'd sit in my hammock. It was so delightfully boring. When was the last time you did nothing at all? And when I say nothing, I mean no phone, no device, no book, no music, just you in stillness. What if doing nothing might be the boldest move you'll ever make? What if doing nothing might be the boldest move you ever make? That's me in my hammock. This is the first stage of the Moxie Method. Stillness, which starts with a seed and time, alone, in the dark. Because a seed must germinate in order to grow. Germination is a period of rapid growth, where on the outside, it looks like not much is happening, but on the inside, deep change is taking place. When I first started practicing stillness, it was very disorienting for me. I felt guilty, lazy, bored. But the more I practiced stillness, the more I noticed. Even when I wasn't being still, I noticed when I felt scared, angry, sad, at peace, and when I felt safe. Signals from our body that teach us about ourselves. Signals that we can only find in stillness. It's these signals that are the foundation of self-awareness and self-trust. See, leadership doesn't start with having a more empathetic boss, or more reasonable clients, or employees who get more done, or a better economy. Leadership starts in stillness. We must trust ourselves first before others can trust us to lead them through unprecedented challenges. Research from Dr. Nancy Andreasen confirms that highly creative individuals engage in deliberate periods of doing nothing, allowing their minds to wander and form novel connections. Leonardo da Vinci would stare silently at his paintings without painting a stroke. Einstein would drift aimlessly in his sailboat. These periods of intentional disengagement allow the brain to shift into default mode network, which is where creativity, problem solving, and insight occur. Things like staring out windows, taking walks, daydreaming, and my personal favorite, napping. Yes, I am inviting all of you to go and take a nap. So, I want you to get out your phones and answer this question. Write it in your notes. What is one distraction you can remove? Beside your phone, that's the obvious choice. What is one distraction you can remove to invite stillness in your life? Stillness isn't laziness, it's leadership. The second stage of the Moxie Method is the spark. This is a period of experimentation and curiosity and play, where you cultivate your strengths and your gifts and the gifts of those around you, and have people mirror back to you those strengths. In fact, only 20% of employees say that they get to use their strengths in their daily jobs. 20%. But employees who use their strengths are 6 times more likely to be engaged at work. And strengths-based organizations have 1.4 times better customer retention and employee loyalty. Not only that, but strengths-based organizations see an increase of 29% in profit. I interviewed the lovely Tianlan Weber at our roadshow in Florida earlier this year, and she shared how Strengths Finder from Gallup has helped her team improve confidence and reduce imposter syndrome. She shares, everyone has strengths they're born with, natural abilities that they do effortlessly, often without even realizing it. When you recognize those as strengths, it builds confidence, because it's not something you had to learn or acquire. It's innate. You were born with it, and you can't lose it. That awareness empowers people to show up more confidently and grow in their roles. So when I hit burnout, I finally stopped. I started working less. I stopped hustling, and I started playing. I took improv classes. I took a public speaking class. I started a new podcast, and now I'm writing a play. So, my next question for you is, what can you do to cultivate your strengths and the strengths of those on your team? And what are you curious about today that you want to explore further? Sometimes identifying your strengths just takes a little practice at noticing what are the things that you gravitate to doing first, and what are the things that you ignore or procrastinate. And that can be an indicator. The third stage of the Moxie Method is the sprout, because a seed can only grow when it is buried in the dirt, under pressure, with no map or light to guide it. Only the internal knowing that comes from the DNA of that seed. This is when you move. You step into discomfort even when it feels like everything and everyone is saying no, because you've practiced stillness long enough to recognize what fear feels like in your body, that heart racing, that pit in your stomach. But you also know what congruence feels like too. Congruence is the embodied sense of I am in integrity with myself. It's an alignment of your heart, mind, and body. Congruence shows up like relaxed shoulders and jaw, grounded energy, a sense of clarity and calm. When you experience fear and congruence, that is your signal to step forward. For me, as I moved from stillness into spark and into sprout, there was one truth my body was asking for that scared me. It scared me because it was different than anything I had ever known in my career. And that was that I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to tell stories and empower women. I'd spent my whole career being the business owner, the project manager, the digital marketing consultant. This was very foreign from anything I had done. But I decided to lean into it and step into it, and launched Hello Moxie, a new podcast and platform where we celebrate the stories of everyday trailblazers. And I'm so excited to announce that we're launching our very first mentorship program, helping women in tech by partnering them up with senior leaders in tech for mentorship and support. So, when you think about stepping into fear, so much of the time people think that fearlessness is what leads to success. But research is clear. It's not fearlessness that determines whether or not you'll be successful. It's in the belief that you can do it. It's self-efficacy. And one thing that can help you step into fear is to find courage companions. Because the research shows that when people have strong psychological support, they're more able to handle stress. So, I want you to think about what is one thing that your body is asking for that scares you. What's one truth? And who can be your courage companions to help you navigate through? The fourth stage is the speak stage. This is when you bloom. With deep self-trust, you step into opportunities that challenge you, not out of pressure, but coming from congruence. Researcher Brené Brown has shared that vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. She did research on 150 executives across 8 years and found that the leaders who modeled vulnerability by speaking up and saying the hard thing and having the hard conversations, admitting when they were afraid, admitting when they felt uncertain about the outcome, those leaders developed more highly resilient teams and had better business outcomes. Speaking up takes courage and vulnerability. So, where are you naturally being called to speak up and contribute? What is it that you want to say that you're holding back from? Which leads to the next stage, the pollination stage. This is where you shine. This is all about mentorship and storytelling and legacy and lifting people up as you go. Research shows that storytelling embeds purpose for both the storyteller and the listener. And purpose is what we need today more than ever. Purpose is what we need in our organizations. So how can you embed storytelling in your business? How can you start telling more stories to the people on your team to inspire them and lift them up? All of us in this room were born to lead and make an impact, no matter where you're at in your organization. Who needs your mentorship and your stories and your support? Because companies who have a strong sense of purpose are clearly more profitable and outperform their competitors. And that starts with storytelling and mentorship. So, whose voice needs to be heard more? And who is one person that you can mentor that needs your mentorship, your stories, and your support? This is the Moxie Method. 5 stages to bold, courageous leadership. Seed, spark, sprout, speak, and shine. Stillness isn't laziness, it's leadership. Stillness is power. Messi struggled with the weight of being a global phenomenon. But Messi knew himself, and he developed a strategy to help him perform and overcome his anxiety so he could perform at his best. So, when the clock starts and the game begins, Messi chooses not to play the game. For the first 5 minutes, while everyone's jogging, he walks. He eases himself in. He doesn't engage with his teammates. By walking, Messi draws the attention of defenders who have to choose whether they're going to follow him or let him roam free. This opens his team up for counterattacks. In fact, Messi is known to walk the majority of the game, sometimes over 80 minutes. Messi has learned the art of stillness. He spends more time preparing than doing, and he does it while the game is happening. We are all on the pitch, but we don't have to out-hustle, outrun, or outwork anyone to succeed. We can choose to do less. We can choose impact over output and improve our well-being and the well-being of our teams in the process. But there's one more thing that brings this method all together. See, trees have an underground network that's called the Wood Wide Web. That's a tongue twister. And it's a network of fungi that sends nutrients and chemicals and signals to surrounding trees. So if pests or pathogens are attacking a tree, that tree can actually send signals to the surrounding trees to bolster their defenses. And if one tree is struggling, the surrounding trees can send sugars to that tree to strengthen it. Leadership doesn't happen in isolation. Growth isn't possible without connection. Every part of my journey to this stage today wouldn't have been possible without this community. If Noah hadn't invited me to speak on that stage in New York, I wouldn't have shared the story of a small B2B manufacturer embarking in e-commerce for the first time. I wouldn't have found my voice. If I hadn't been given the opportunities that I've been given to speak up in this community, I may not have had the courage to start Hello Moxie, to help other women like me find their voice. And I wouldn't be on the stage today, inviting you to hear this everyday marketer from Virginia share my story. Choosing to no longer be thrown overboard, to live someone else's life, choosing to be the captain of my life. Deeply hoping that my story and my journey will empower you to lead with Moxie, to live a life rooted in stillness, a spark of curiosity, to step into fear, speak up, and have the courage to shine. Thank you. Thank you so much.